Before we start this episode, I want to do a couple of housekeeping things. First of all, the episode I did where I talked to my daughter, I misspoke and it's kind of bugged me for a while, so I just wanted to mention humans, when they were hunter-gatherers, it was during the Paleolithic era, and when they started creating villages and whatnot, that was the Neolithic era. I get those mixed up sometimes. The other thing for this particular episode, I'm trying a few new things, and unfortunately, there was an issue with the video camera. So some rough spots and the video cuts out about halfway through the interview. However, I was able to keep the audio and that came through just fine. So hopefully you find this informative and you enjoy listening. I had a great time talking to Veronica. Let me know what you think. You can leave a comment or you can email me at bishopsgatetraining@gmail.com. This is Steve Bishop, certified dog trainer. Welcome to Dog Leads, where I answer your questions about dog behavior, communication, development, and the dog-human bond. If you have any questions or would like to make a suggestion for a topic, you can leave a comment or email me at bishopsgatetraining@gmail.com. If you'd like to find out more about me, you can visit my website at bishopsgatetraining.my.canva.site. One of my side projects, I do what's called the Mid-Missouri Pet Calendar, and it's just a list of all the events that different organizations that have going on that have to do with animals. And as I was updating my list, I came across Lil Paws, and they just happened to be at an event that I went to a couple of days later, and so I got to meet everybody, and I thought it'd be fun to have someone from that organization on the show. So with me is Veronica. She is
I'm a foster with Lil Paws Big Hearts Rescue. Yeah.
Okay. I guess we'll just jump right into it. So first question would be, how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so we do several events, less coming up this year, but the best place to find out what we're all about and look at our dogs that are up for adoption is on our website. It is Lil pawsbighearts.org. And you can email us there at info@lilpawsbighearts.org, and you can get more information.
Okay. And I saw that doing some prep work for this interview. I saw they've only been around for about 2022. Is that right?
Yeah, about that. It hasn't been too long, so.
And have you been with them the whole time, or?
No, probably about, I think, a year now.
Okay. Did you have Chihuahuas before, or is it just something new?
I grew up on a farm, and we have always had all kinds of animals, big, small, dogs, cats, horses, pigs, all of it. So we've had all number of different animals.
Okay. Do you foster horses also? Or no?
No. Okay. I think if they offered my mom to foster horses, she'd definitely say yes, but not me.
Oh, so how do you get the dogs into the rescue? Do you go looking at shelters? Do you rely on people just getting in touch with you, or how does that work?
So Claudia, our founder and director, she goes through all kinds of different ways. So she goes through different rescues, different, like the Humane Society. I know she also had a few that were surrenders and things like that. So we...
And how did you get involved? You said you just like being around animals. Why Chihuahuas specifically?
So actually, I am not preferred to any specific type of dog, but I met Claudia, and Claudia was so nice, and I love the dogs. And one of the great things is built in to a Chihuahua and mix-only rescue is that they're all going to be a very manageable size. Mm-hmm. So that was definitely helpful. So I got started with the rescue, and I really enjoyed it.
Nice. Yeah, I was thinking about that. It'd be a lot easier than, if you, like, I know we get a lot of, I don't know what your situation is, college students who have an apartment. It'd be a lot easier to foster a Chihuahua than, like 3 of Malcolm and 60 pounds and he's not real barky, but he does tend to bark a little bit. So.
Yeah, we actually do have our own house now, so we don't share walls with anybody, and we do have a yard, but it's not completely fenced in, but we do have two cats as well, so it helps to kind of keep everybody around the same size. They're smaller cats, but yeah, so the great thing about Chihuahuas and mixes is they're small on everything but personality.
Right.
So, there's a lot less hair to clean up, there's a lot less mess to clean up, there's, a lot less grooming. They need to eat a lot less, and medication-wise, things like that, it's a lot less money, so that all helps.
So you get mostly the smooth, for those who don't know, the short-haired
We
Chihuahuas,
get
or
all kinds of things. So we had a longer, more wiry coat. We've had a couple short hair coats, and then we also had a Yorkie too that came in. She's an honorary Chihuahua,
Right.
and her hair was pretty long too, which I don't mind. For the longest time, my soul dog was a standard poodle, so I did for almost all of her life. I did pretty much all of her grooming, so I really got used to all that entails.
Right. No, I know. Just speaking of the Yorkie, I used to do volunteer work with ABR at the American Brittany Rescue, and it was mainly what I did was transports, just because for reasons. But we had such a great network that we got a lot of different dogs in, not just Brittany's. So I get that. It's nice that you're willing to kind of cross over. You meaning the organization, willing to kind of help out where you can. Yeah, that's awesome. So let me ask you this. What was the biggest expectation versus reality? So like what you were expecting and turned out was not how you had pictured it, I guess.
So I think I was thinking that the biggest part of this was going to be the work input, and actually it hasn't been as much work as I thought it was going to be. I know it sounds a little backwards, but I've always had animals in the house, and so with fostering, really we just treat an animal exactly like we would if they were our dog. We help them get ready for their home, but it really isn't that different. You do the same things you would with your own dog. You take them on walks, you train them, you play with them, all that good stuff. I do think, though, people's opinions have been a little different than we thought. Like, previously, I had a big standard poodle, and everybody really gravitated towards her. She was a really great people dog. And she was always looking for, affection and treats and pets and things. And so people were, especially kids, always wanting to pet her and play with her and things when we took her places. Drive-thrus and stuff. Everybody always offered her pup cups.
Right.
But it is interesting. Some people really do like smaller dogs when we bring the fosters out and about, but a lot less people really gravitate towards them, which I thought was also very interesting. And I'm not the only one that noticed it either. So.
I know I've been working professionally with dogs for about 15 years now, and hundreds, if not thousands, of different breeds, and don't dislike the small dogs, but I always say that if I have to bend over to pet the dog, they're too small.
Oh, really?
And that's just my personal, like I said, it's my personal preference. My wife, on the other hand, likes the smaller dogs. So Malcolm, he's a little dog aggressive, so that's why we only have one right now. But usually we have two dogs. We have one that's kind of about Malcolm's size, and then one that's much smaller. So I
One
get
for
that.
each of you.
But I love the little ones also. There's nothing wrong with them. I've had a few Chihuahuas. They're very sweet. I enjoyed them. And like you said, they have a lot of personality, so it's very fun. So you kind of alluded to it. Let's go ahead. I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the myths about Chihuahuas.
Yeah, definitely. So stereotypes are really big with Chihuahuas, and I kind of want to preface this by saying one of the first things that I learned from Claudia, the founder and director. She's very, very knowledgeable about Chihuahuas, and of course, if I'm going to be in a Chihuahua rescue, I need to know as much as I can. Right. So she did do some education and did teach me that Chihuahuas are one of the biggest breeds to be euthanized and released into shelters. Which is actually right behind pit bulls. But the way she kind of explained it is that pit bulls can look like a lot of different things. So actually she thinks that the number one euthanized dog breed is probably Chihuahuas. And I actually didn't know that, but the more I've gotten into this and the more I have experienced, having Chihuahuas out around different people and trying to find them homes, it does make a lot of sense when it comes to how people perceive the breed, and specifically small dogs. So
I will say, just on a side note, one of the things that I talk about is over 80% of the dogs over 80% of dogs identified as pit bulls in newspapers for bites or whatever, that type of thing, they are misidentified. So it kind of speaks to what you're saying about, you probably know there's not a pit bull breed.
Yes.
There's American pit bull terriers, and there's, American Staffordshires, and et cetera. So it kind of goes back to what you were saying is it may not be as big of a number. And that surprises me, though, about the Chihuahuas being...
Well, I think it's a multifaceted issue, because on one hand, like the pit bulls, it does seem to be an issue of mistaken identity, or they kind of lump everybody all together in under this one label. Whereas I think part of the issue with Chihuahuas is there's so many, because they are small and decently easy to manage. So people, I think, have this idea in their head that, like puppies won't be the worst thing in the world, if we'll have a few, but then you end up with several dogs and it's still an issue. You still have to get your dogs fixed and keep that from becoming an issue itself too.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I do know, in my experience, it's definitely more likely for the smaller dogs to not be fixed than it is for the larger dogs. And I do think it has to do with that idea of like, they're small, they're less work, like if an accident happens, if we have puppies, it won't be so big of a deal. But then you think about over time, if everybody thinks that way, you're going to get a whole lot more dogs. So
yeah. So the small dog syndrome, do you think that plays a part in it?
I definitely do. And I think there's a lot of different reasons for that, but I think just especially when it comes to how people use language every day, whenever you think Chihuahua or you call somebody a Chihuahua, you're thinking small, annoying, maybe loud or yappy. And in my experience, that has not been the case. It's been quite the opposite, but it's still just very persistent that anytime, you tell people, I foster dogs, and for what rescue, for this one, it's specifically to Chihuahuas. They're always like, oh. And there's a little bit of a reaction there. Or you talk about, what dog you're currently fostering, and you say, he is a blank mix or a Chihuahua mix or whatever, and there's like, oh. There's a little bit of a reaction there about, the smaller dogs, specifically Chihuahuas. And I do think there's multiple reasons for that, but I do have to stress how much that it just simply, in my experience, is not true. We've had several fosters now, and I wouldn't consider any of them yappy at all. I mean, I don't even think any of them were really particularly loud, really. I think the Yorkie was probably the loudest one, and she was an honorary Chihuahua, not an actual one, so...
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I don't want to get too far off topic. So, I guess the short of it is, the Yorkies were bred to bark, whereas the Chihuahuas, they weren't really used in the same way, and they didn't have to be as vocal. As I was sitting here thinking about it, as you were talking, I remember having two Chihuahuas in my class over the 15 years or so. And one, it was the advantage that the people really wanted to put in the effort and the work to have a well-rounded dog. And then I think about when I've mentioned on the show, I used to own a self-serve dog wash, and I had people with Chihuahuas, and they carried them everywhere, and oh, my little baby, and the dog's sitting there, like the cartoon image you were talking about. They're just shaking the whole time and snapping at everybody. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I guess
so personally, it's kind of a pet peeve of mine whenever people with little dogs carry them everywhere, or they don't let them touch the ground. Part of me is because it's really up close in people's faces. So if you're greeting somebody, having a dog in your arms is also very close to somebody else's face. It's allowing that other person to get into the dog's personal space. You're not really allowing them to, sniff things and get around and stuff. And it relies less on actual training for the dog to behave versus manual modification of the situation so if your dog starts growling or whatever, you're not relying on training to have them, behave, you can just, scoop them up or remove them from the situation or turn away, rather than the dog actually being trained. It's about how the human responds. And I think that just leads to, some issues that make things much harder for the dog itself and for the human. And I do think, so I am very interested in dogs, obviously, and animals in general. So I do subscribe to like different grooming channels and things like that. And one of my favorites online, she had previously discussed the idea that some dogs become more aggressive, specifically for groomers and strangers, because at home their boundaries aren't being listened to. So, for example, with smaller dogs, it is much easier to, force them to, be pet or play with or whatever. They're not like a big dog. They can't just kind of like turn away and get out of your reach. You can't, they're smaller, so they're more at your will. And whenever a dog is, turning away, or, they start to growl a little bit or do things like that, it's because they're trying to explain their boundaries. They're trying to communicate with you. And if you constantly ignore those, then the dog is probably going to, up the ante, so to speak. And then it starts getting into, louder growls or barks, or, even nipping. And then if you do that over time, then the dog learns like, oh, well, they never actually respond to what I have to say until I nip at them. So, and then they stop. So over time, the dog learns, well, there's no use in me, trying to give them warning shots. I really just need to nip at them to get them to stop. And then they go straight to that. And that's when it becomes more of an issue later. So I do think it has to do with how easily boundaries are disrupted with smaller dogs versus bigger dogs as well.
I'm chuckling because it's been a little while now, but I actually did a previous episode on why it's important not to punish a growl. Because it's one of the last steps before a dog does bite or nip. But the other point that I make is when we hear that, we need to address it so it doesn't occur again and it doesn't escalate to a nip or a actual bite.
Yeah, I think it's very, very important to, especially when you're around so many new dogs. When it comes to fostering, you're constantly having new animals come into your house, and you're learning with new animals all the time, and they're coming from a background you haven't seen before. That's really, really important to understand, what their language means. What are they trying to tell you? And listen to that. They're telling you for a reason. And I definitely don't understand why some people, would punish a growl when I want to know if they're going to bite me. I need to know ahead of time. I definitely want the warning involved. So
and I do a presentation on this also. I talk about it. It's important because a lot of people don't know how to read those body signals, but a growl, a bark, those are things that everybody can recognize. Yeah. And if you take that away, then you're just not seeing that step before it does turn to a growl or to a bite. And of course, who pays the ultimate price? It's the dog. Yeah. Which is unfortunate. Well, let me switch gears a little bit. So, do you have a favorite only in this job experience?
So, we've had a few, but I think, honestly, the funniest one was we lost our foster last night. We were in the middle of making pizzas, and it got a little smoky in our kitchen, and the smoke detector went off. And, we were in the process of trying to, wave a rag in front of it to kind of get the smoke to dissipate a little bit. And we turned around, after everything had settled down, and we couldn't find Austin, our current foster. And we're like, oh my goodness, where is he? And we were looking around for him, and he was wedged, because he's a very small guy, wedged behind some shoes in our guest room, just like cowering and freaking out. And that is when we learned that our current foster is afraid of loud noises. Yeah. So
well, I know even Malcolm, when our batteries start to go in our smoke detectors, they just beep beep it's like every 2 minutes or something. And he just goes nuts. He does not like that at all. So I get that. That's funny. I mean, it's not, but it Well,
and it's just a part of bringing these dogs into your everyday life, but you're also trying to learn about the dog itself, and what does this dog like? What does this dog need? How can I find a home that is going to be perfect for this dog, and to where, you know, the humans in the situation and the dog in the situation are both going to get a great, lasting, wonderful relationship out of this. So it is, you know, you have this dog into your everyday life and stuff happens and you try to learn from it. Like, yeah, okay, so now we'll be able to tell, you know, his future owner, like, yeah, he's a little scared of that, so, you know, you might need to whip out the hot dogs and lure him back into the kitchen after the smoke detector goes off.
Yeah. I want to say failed foster, but let's skip that if there is one. And the question is there a specific dog that actually stands out? You know, you've only been doing it about a year.
Yeah, but we've actually had quite a few dogs. The average time that we have a dog for is about a month. So we actually...
That's actually really good.
Yeah.
I know some other people in rescues that, you know, that's
some of
awesome.
them, we had some that stuck out that, you know, needed more time. But we've also had, you know, several that it was just about a month and, you know, we found them a home pretty quickly. So I won't say that any of them in particular stood out, mostly because, like, they're just all so different. And that's what I love about this job. Like, I remember specific things about each individual dog that we've had. Like, you know, we had Luke and he had issues with his ears and he had arthritis. And so I guess I remember the most about them is when they went to go live with their new home. What was the moment I kind of knew it was going to click, because I was told ahead of time that that's what I should be kind of looking for when finding a new home for an animal. But I was like, oh, okay, we'll see how it goes. But no, really, it does happen like that. It's just a moment in which you're like, yeah, no, this is going to stick. This is going to work really well. And that was, we had our very first foster, Bambi. We had met his new owners in the park. And we were just walking around, kind of teaching him, and instantly Bambi really loved the woman and, you know, loved pets and was, you know, all over her. But he's a little standoffish with the gentleman. And, you know, he got down on his level and tried to talk to him and stuff, and it just wasn't working out very well, so I was a little nervous. But then towards the end, after we had talked for a while and they had, you know, walked with us through the park, he kind of got down on his level again and he held out his hand. And Bambi put his hand out in his hand, and he had never, like, he didn't know how to shake or anything like that. He just, you know, like, all right, I trust you, let's do this. And that was it. I'm like, yeah, okay, he's chosen, he's picked. And there's another moment too when we had, and the older dog Luke, he ended up going with this other older gentleman, so they both take their aspirin at the same time now every day. Nice. And they both get a little achy around, you know, when it's wet outside. Right. And it's very sweet. And, you know, we had walked around a little bit, and at the end we were getting ready to go, and I was still just, you know, like, I haven't really seen the thing yet that said it, but the older gentleman picked him up and kissed him on his muzzle. And he just, like, melted into his arms so sweetly, like he was never going to leave. And I definitely knew then, too. So
my wife and I have talked about fostering, and then, again, stuff happened. You know, we had our second child, and she was too young, and Malcolm is an issue. But, yeah, that's something I always worried about it's like every dog I would just want to keep. I worry about that. So how do you reconcile that, I guess?
Well, one thing is it's important to understand what you want in an animal. Like, you can simultaneously love all dogs and recognize that some dogs are not for you, right? You can love a husky and also realize if you live in the middle of the desert, it's probably not great for them.
I always say I love border collies, but I cannot see having a dog that is smarter than I am.
Yeah. So. Yeah, so it is important to understand, you know, what are you looking for in the animal, and try to think about that too and what the animal needs as well. Because when you're fostering, all these animals are going to be extremely different. They're going to come from different backgrounds, they're going to have different needs, and your job is to find the perfect home, not like your home, not, you know, create your home to fit them. It's to find a place where they fit really well and to help them become the best dog that they can be. So I think that's important, but also part of the reason I got into fostering is because I lost my soul dog about a year and a half ago, I think. About a year and a half ago. So, and I had her for her entire life since I was 14 years old. She watched me grow up, and I was not ready after that for my own dog, but I love having dogs in the house. Yeah.
I've been through that a few times. I always say I was fortunate. I had two of those dogs. Talbot, who was the first dog that I got once I moved out. Same thing. He was with me his whole life. He was a stray. If met the people, they're like, yeah, we had an unexpected litter, just keep him. And then the dog right after him, Duncan, he was another one. And they were different dogs, but they were what I needed at the time. Yeah. But getting back to your point, I have a tendency to ramble sometimes. No, getting back to your point, yeah, well, there's a saying that getting a dog is like getting a small tragedy, and not small in impact, but small in dogs are smaller than us, I guess. Yeah, it's tough to go through that, and how people deal with it. When Talbot passed away, my wife and I were talking about it, and it's like, well, everybody says wait about 6 months or so, and before you get another dog. And I was like, 2 months. I was like, we got to get another dog in the house. This is just wrong. And I know he's not going to be Talbot, but we've got to get another dog. And within a month, we had Duncan.
So yeah, that's kind of how I was feeling, that like I love snugglers, I love dogs. They help me get out of the house and go walk and do things. And especially in the winter when it's cold and I don't want to go anywhere, but the dog needs to go out, and the cats don't do that. Right. So I was used to having her for so long. She really helped me to do a lot of different things, and I'm like, what, I've got to have a dog in the house. But also every time I was thinking about getting a puppy or looking at, other dogs, I was constantly thinking about, well, how do they compare to Nilly? And that wasn't something I wanted to do. I didn't want to bring a dog into that situation knowing like they are here to try and measure up when they just couldn't, because they're not going to be the same dog. But I really get a lot of enjoyment and satisfaction and just good feelings from fostering. I really enjoy, helping a dog to be rehabilitated and, be the best dog that they can be, but also finding them a really great home where they fit. I love having, all these new personalities in and out of my house all the time. And I love having animals around, but also I'm okay with them not being mine. And I think I'm going to be okay with that for at least a little while. And I think something else I've learned too is you never know exactly what you're going to get in a puppy, because they can turn out so many different ways. Right. Even if you're getting a specific breed in mind, there's still going to be a lot of differences in what they end up liking and what they don't like doing and things like that. So I think that fostering is also good because I really get to learn about the individual dog's personality. And so now whenever I am finally ready for my dog, I'll get to try them out first. Right. And and really see which one sticks too. So I definitely like that part about it too.
I've kind of specialized in puppies. I love the development and the communication and all of that kind of stuff. So I really focus most of my training that I do with puppies. One of the things I like about it is I used to teach all the way up to where I teach group classes. We do all the way up to Pet Manners 2, which is a CGC preparatory class, basically. And when I needed to cut back, I was like, well, I want to get the dogs before they have any problems. But at the same time, like you said, I mean, the last session, we had one dog that was just very, very timid. And it was just a personality. There was no reason for it. Well, there was, but we finally figured it out and how to address it. But yeah, like you're saying, I mean, you can say you're not getting them, you're getting the dog before they have any problems, but at the same time, that personality, it's that whole nature nurture, they both play a part. And some dogs are just like that. Which keeps it interesting, I think. So, kind of like you're saying. Well, you kind of answered this or kind of alluded to this also. So where would you like to be in 10 years as far as the rescue and the dogs and whatnot?
So the rescue is definitely Claudia's baby. And she has so much passion for Chihuahuas themselves. I don't know exactly how long I will be with that part. I think she's going to keep going with the awesome work that she's doing. However, myself personally, I would like to have, again, my own personal companion eventually. I'm not in any particular rush right now, but probably in the next probably year or so. But I also really like fostering, and I don't think it's something that I want to necessarily stop. Maybe pause while I get, used to having my own dog. But especially my cats, they have really loved fostering. And we don't have kids. We have a pretty quiet house as it is. So we are in a unique situation to be able to foster. And I really love doing it. I think it's a great hobby. And especially because I love, training animals also.
Okay.
So I think it's also super fun to be able to constantly have new animals to train to do things. I think that's really fun too.
Right. So about the cats, I one of the early episodes, I have a friend who fosters cats, and their question was, they have I forget it. It's not a lab. Anyway, they have a dog. It's fairly young, and of course, the dog wants to play. It's not malicious or aggressive towards them, but the cats are just not too crazy about it. You said your cats kind of like having the other dogs around. Was that just something that they were used to being around dogs, or is that something you had to teach them, or?
It's a little bit of both. It's a balancing act, definitely. So my Nilly, my soul dog that I had for a very long time, she was already well trained when we got our first cat. He was a stray, and we found him. He was less than a year old as a kitten, and he was in rough shape and really needed some help. So we took him in, and we kept them separate for quite a while as we were making sure he was nice and healthy. And when we first put them together, I think me and my wife, we were both nervous about how it was going to go, but they ended up being best friends. So wonderful of a bond. It was really fantastic. And I think it was a combination of, giving them enough space each to become friends without forcing it, but also making sure that they each had time away and a break so that things didn't get too much. But also, I think it had to do with just their personality and who they both were and liked to do. And then later, we ended up getting a kitten, and we found this barn kitten that somebody was getting rid of, and this little orange kitten we were thinking about adding somebody else to. And for some reason, we brought this little kitten home, and he was not scared at all of Nilly, this big standard poodle. Not terrified of her at all. Loved her. Really scared of the cat, though. I have no idea. So that took some time too, with actually getting the cats to interact with each other and be good together. And again, making sure you have the space, making sure you introduce them slowly, you give them space where they're not, neither one is really the boss or in charge of anything, and slowly getting them together. But especially as a kitten, he learned from our dog. And so now he has a lot of really interesting character traits that are very dog-like, I will say. He wags his tail. He doesn't swish his tail. He wags it.
Okay.
He loves whipped cream. I realized that pup cups were getting a little expensive, so I just kept a can of whipped cream in my fridge, and for tricks, my dog would get a little squirt of whipped cream. And the cat learned to do that too, so now he also does tricks for whipped cream. He's just an interesting specimen. But them both just having that experience of being around dogs, I think, was great when we first started this. However, they do respond to new fosters in the house very differently. So our older cat, he is now our foster coordinator. He greets them when they come in. I swear he really understands what a dog needs, because he will turn around and just wince and hold still as the dog sniffs his butt. And he'll wait until he gets that over with. Like, he clearly doesn't enjoy it, but he's like, all right, I guess you need to do this, so I'll allow it.
Right.
Yeah, so as soon as we bring home a new foster, he greets them, he smells them, he'll, rub up against them and say hi, and is very welcoming. And then we have our other cat who just kind of sits at the cat tree for a couple of days and just watches them. So there's also a lot of different ways for cats and dogs to interact healthily too. Like it's not a one size fits all. Like sometimes they can play together, sometimes they can just nap together, and sometimes like they can just be in the same house together. They don't necessarily have to get along. There's a lot of different ways to do that. So currently our puppy, he is a little much and does want to play. And I think having that experience of a particularly large dog in the house, they're not necessarily scared whenever he, does his jumping thing or his the play pose. It doesn't really startle them because they've had that experience previously. Right. But they aren't very interested either. Yeah. So yeah, giving them enough space to where, they can get up high away from him. They can go in a different room to get away from him if he's too overbearing, because he is a puppy. He's overzealous. He hasn't learned boundaries yet. And also helping the dog to do things in a way that will allow him to interact with the cats in a healthy way. So if that means like helping to train him to, settle down and just lay down for a while. Because usually if I can get, one of the dogs to just lay down and chill out on the couch for a while, the cats will come and also lay down with us. And then, the dog gets to interact with the cat gets to interact with the dog. Everybody's on a level playing field. It also has to do with, just having the dog chill out long enough to be able to interact and, build up that trust between them two. So.
Okay. I don't know if you're familiar with Patricia McConnell. She's retired now, but she had radio shows and written several books. And I say this wrong, and I don't know why it's escaping me now. She's a zoologist. She's an animal behavior ethologist. She taught at the University of Wisconsin for a while. But anyway, one of the things she talks about is, paraphrasing, that dogs take about 3 months to get really comfortable in a situation and get comfortable with the whole routine and people and everything like that. Cats can take up to 6 months. Well, it can take as long as 6 months or more. Just getting that comfort level with somebody new or the dogs or whatnot. Yeah, so I wonder if that kitten in particular, I talk about these developmental stages that they go through in socialization periods, and if they're exposed to certain things at certain times, they have a much better relationship's not really the word I'm looking for, but interaction, I guess. So I wonder if that, it's all speculation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if that with the younger one, the kitten, if that kind of helped, just having that exposure during that critical period.
Well, I think something that is really important to consider is I would much rather them have less interaction than a bad interaction.
Yeah.
So
that's a good way to put it. I like that.
It looks like things are getting a little tense or they're getting irritated, I'm separating them immediately because they can slowly build that trust over time interacting with each other. But once it's broken down and there's an interaction that happens and it scares somebody or makes somebody uncomfortable, it's going to take you so much longer after that. And especially if they're a puppy or a kitten, these are really fundamental times in their life where they're learning about the world and they're developing their ability to see the world in certain ways and interact with the world in certain ways. And whenever you have that negative interaction, it's a lot harder to go back later. So yeah, I definitely watch, and especially if, you are trying to, have a puppy or kitten, get involved with these other animals or whatever, especially the very young ages, I would definitely give them space, give them so much space. If you see anything that, might look like they're starting to get a little stressed out or might look like it's starting to become an issue, it's just always easier to separate them and to give them their own space and relax, and they can come back later versus, trying to undo damage that was done if you weren't quite paying attention.
Right.
So,
yeah. I guess the last thing I have written down really is, I don't know how many of these interviews you've done or
No, actually this is my first podcast.
Okay. Well, I'll put it this way then. Is there anything I haven't asked that you wanted to talk about?
I think I would just mainly urge other people to get involved. A lot of people will say, oh, that's really great that you foster. I can't do that. And that's great, but there's so many other ways to get involved. We do all kinds of events that, we would definitely be able to have volunteers at. There's all kinds of things that we need donated all the time, even just getting in touch with a rescue and maybe just spending a few hours a week with, helping to socialize an animal or going on walks or anything like that. You don't have to go all out with fostering and having a dog in your home. You can do all kinds of little things that really make a huge, huge, huge difference in the lives of these dogs. And I definitely wouldn't shy away from, particularly little dogs. They may have, some of that stereotype behavior, but I think at the end of the day, it really just comes down to the environment. And when it comes to a dog, the environment is controlled by a human. What they eat, when they eat, what is going on around them, everything in their entire life, when they play, when they go to the bathroom, all of these things are in charge of by a human around them and how the human responds to them. So, you might be a little concerned about a particularly yappy dog, but you might not be a person that fosters yappiness in your house. So It might be great anyway. So.
Well, and the other side of that, and Duncan that I was talking about earlier, he was a Brittany. He was the most un-Brittany I've ever been around.
Yeah.
It just, Brittany's as a rule are not very kinesthetic, but this dog, some of the fondest memories I have is when he was laying next to me with his head in my lap, which you just don't see a lot in Brittany's. So even little dogs, the yippy dogs and whatnot, like you're saying, maybe you get one that's not so yippy. And I joke I'd never have a corgi because they're just too much hair. My wife grew up with corgis, but you might get that one that just has a thinner coat or whatever. I'm not explaining it very well.
I think that's...
I'm kind of speaking to...
Yeah.
It's worth putting in the effort and not trying to stereotype every single dog. We make generalizations about breeds just so it's easier to understand, but each dog is going to be an individual. And
definitely.
It may be much better fit than that's stereotypical.
And I think it's also important to understand too, there are things you can do about any kind of behavioral issue. We see all kinds of them come in to the rescue, and you would be surprised what just a week of peace and quiet and regular meals and cuddles will do for an animal. Even if you do find an animal that you think you're really, really gonna like, and it just isn't working out. Like you said, the 3 months, we call it the rule of threes, and it was included in, the foster packet that I got that was, just also try to be patient. Because, nobody exists in a vacuum, essentially. And, everything that dog has gone through previously, everything that dog is going through now impacts their behavior as well. And there's all kinds of so many things that you can do if you're experiencing these issues. That doesn't mean you have to live with a yappy dog or a dog that you find annoying or any of those things. So.
So I wanted to wrap up just something fun, just call it 10 questions. It's just one answer, one word, or just a few word answers. Nothing that we really need to delve into unless it's something you want to kind of expand on. But I just thought it would be kind of fun. I'm just going to pick these at random. You can see I've got a few more than 10 here. So, so your first dog, you said was...
She was a blue heeler named Cheyenne. I grew up on a farm, and she was a livestock dog.
You let the dog sleep in the bed, or do you think you should let the dog sleep in the bed or not?
If they're your dog and you don't have any extenuating circumstances that would make things, unpleasant for you or the dog, definitely.
Yeah. It's funny. People always ask me, should I let the dog on the couch? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe. It's totally up to you. I don't mind the dog sleeping in the bed, but some people, if you've got a baby, you've got antiques, whatever, it's up to you. Yeah. Well, some of these kind of answer themselves, I guess, with being Chihuahuas. Yeah. Tennis ball or squeaky toy?
Ooh. In my experience, squeaky toys.
In just a few words, what does a forever home mean?
I think it means safety. It means being the best that both the human and the dog can be. And the best part is the forever part. Very
concise. Puppy breath or Frito toes?
Frito toes. I actually, okay, so I was very depressed when my dog passed away, really, really depressed. And I honestly missed the smell of her feet. I know that sounds a little weird, but I kept her little booties because it was winter in a Ziploc bag. And I would occasionally just, if I really, really missed her, I'd open the bag and smell it just a little bit and then put it away.
Yeah, no, it's surprising, and it's surprising how many people don't realize how much odor has an impact on us.
Yeah.
And it's things, things like that you don't think about at the time, but afterwards it's like, oh my gosh, I miss that smell, or that reminds me of, whatever. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So what do you think the rescue theme song would be?
Oh my gosh. So just the first thing that popped into my head was there's this YouTuber a while back called Jenna Marbles, and her intro was pretty much just kind of the sound of a squeak toy. And I think that's what it would be. It's just kind of like a squeaky sound, I think.
Okay.
The sound of a squeaky toy, yeah.
What's the worst thing you've ever had a dog destroy?
Can I change it to be the worst thing that a dog has done?
Sure.
So, standard poodles are very smart. Very, very, very smart. And they are water dogs.
Poodles, yeah.
Yep. So we had sliding glass doors in our house, and we lived on a farm with a lake. And we had a very, very smart standard poodle. And one of those glass doors was right in my bed, into my bedroom. Mm-hmm. And so I would sleepily open the door, let her out. She learned how to open those doors herself. And one morning, it was very, very early in the morning, she had opened the sliding glass door herself and gone down to the lake. And she loved to splash around in the lake, get all gross, and try to catch frogs and eat them. And I guess this one time she ate a frog that didn't agree to her. She wasn't feeling good, so she came back into my bedroom, onto my bed, and threw up a rotting dead frog onto my bed.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't even want to.
Yeah. Talking about smells like that the smell of that has never left me.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Okay. Favorite place to take a dog on an outing?
Hiking. I love hiking.
Okay. What's your least favorite breed?
Least favorite breed? I mean,
I could answer this one either. I thought it'd be interesting to see the response, though. So
I think I really love all animals. I really am not a cat person, dog person. I just love all animals. Mm-hmm. Personally, though, I'm a little bit of a germaphobe. So I think if, like, particularly drooly animals, or like if they have like a lot of like snot or drool, I think, like my grandma had Saint Bernards, and some of them were just fine, but some of them were really, the drool was just everywhere, and you could not escape the drool.
It's like shoestrings.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think I'd be able to do drool.
That's funny. I just had that conversation in class the other day. It's a big lab mix, and came up and was all excited to see me, and just slobber all over. I had my jacket on still, and it's just all over the. Yeah. So, if you have a word, a mantra, slogan that you live by, what would that be?
So, definitely, what goes around comes around, because there have been moments in my life, good and bad, where something that had happened was directly impacted by the good that I had done previously. And I think sometimes it is very hard to look around you and say, well, is it worth it to do these little good things every day? Like, I don't see anything coming out of this. I don't see other people doing this. Like, am I really doing anything with the little acts of good that I am doing? And I think it's really, really important to remember that those little ripples of good that you put out into your community, out into the people in the lives around you, they spread around, and eventually they do come back. And, that's not necessarily the point of doing good, but when they do, it's important to understand, like, why that happened, and to keep putting good out there, and to keep doing it over and over again. And, let it come back, let those little ripples come back to you eventually.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe someday, now that I've done, all this fostering work, I will be unsafe somehow and a little tribe of mixed match chihuahuas are going to come out of the woods and rescue me. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. It wouldn't be terrible.
Yeah.
I think we can kind of wrap up there. Thank you for being on the show, and give us contact information one more time. And
yeah, so you can go onto our website for Lil Paws, LIL, Paws, BigHearts.org is our website, and you can look at all the dogs that we have available for adoption, or you could possibly come to one of our events, or even become a foster yourself. So.
All right. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I had fun.
I did
hope
too.
you did too. Okay.